In 1856, but some say 1904, there is an urban legend that tormented the town of Poquoson, Virginia. And this story right here is the story of Dolly Mammy. And this story is still going around until this very day. So buckle up, sit on down, grab you something to drink and something to eat, because I'm about to tell y'all a story. A storm was building outside as Dolly Mamie was preparing herself for the day. And as she gazed out of her little farmhouse window that sat near the marshes of Messick, she noticed that the wind was starting to pick up more and more, and the clouds were turning darker and darker until they were turning black. She instantly began preparing herself for the storm, and she grabbed her cloak as she was heading from the door, and she told her daughters, "Come on, y'all, we got to go get the cows up. The cows are out there in the marsh, and we got to get them up before the storm hits and put them in the barn." Her two girls sat back and just mean mugged her and was like, "No, we're not going out there in this mess that's coming in. And they started wailing and refusing to help their mama. Well, Dolly was just over it. She threw her hands in the air in disbelief, shook her head, and said, "You know what? I'll do it my damn self." And she headed out by herself into the marshes to gather them cows up. A few hours would go by, and Dolly still wasn't home yet. But the storm started hitting the house so hard that it was shaking the house, and the rain was pelting against the windows so hard like it was trying to make its way in to seek shelter itself. The girls starting to realize that their mama was still out in the storm, and she had not made it back in those doors, and they started panicking. But they couldn't go out in that storm, not until morning. By the time morning hit, the storm was over, and the girls went and gathered their neighbors. They gathered their family and their friends to form a search party to go find their mama. Well, they searched all over Messick, and they could not find her until all of a sudden they walked up upon Belle's oyster gut. And that's when they saw it. Right there in a deep muck pit, covered in mud and just nasty as could be, was a leg sticking out of a sinkhole. Well, someone got a rope and they put it around that leg and they started pulling it up, and they soon realized that it was the body of Dolly. She had fallen in a sinkhole in the middle of that storm and suffocated. They had Dolly's funeral, and not too long after the passing of their mama, weird things started happening in that farmhouse. It started slow. They were knocking on the wall, just slight knocking. But as the days went by and the nights grew longer, the knocking got loud. So loud that it started disrupting the neighbors. And eventually it was knocking so loud it wasn't disrupting only the neighbors, but the whole area Messick. And it would only start when the sun went down and night began. And at night the girls would sleep in the same bed because they were so scared. And one morning they woke up and they found their hair had been braided together. They would start waking up to deep scratches on their faces and marks on them, like somebody just got a hold of them in the middle of the night. And one night, they were awakened by their bed levitating and shaking. Now, word had went all through the town and surrounding areas to the point where a neighbor had reached out to an army officer and begged them to come in there and investigate this house and see what in the heck was going on that was causing this mess. The army officer would soon show up after he gathered a group of men to go with him, and they stayed and investigated the house. They searched everywhere, looking for what was causing the knockings that they were witnessing as well, and along the property, and they found absolutely nothing. Not one explanation for what was going on in that house. This shook the army officer and his men so much that the army officer went home and wrote reports about it, and he also told his wife, and the word spread in their area as well about the hauntings. The army officer soon found a medium, and he sent the medium to the girl's house to see if maybe possibly as a last resort that she could help them. The girls called in their family, and they all sat around a table with the medium, and they held themselves a seance. As the medium began her seance, she said aloud, "If there is a spirit with us, make your presence known. Show yourselves. Let us know you're here." And that's when the knocking happened again. And this time a loud wail of laughter swirled around the room, and a shadow figure formed and took place as an apparition of a woman in the rocking chair who was knitting. The medium said something to the spirit, and the spirit wailed, and they ended the seance right then, scaring the hell out of all of them. Now, y'all, some say this is where the story ends, but others say the story continued because they had to have an exorcism. And the others said that the hauntings didn't stop until one of the daughters passed away. Now, there are different variations of this story and how Dolly had presumably lost her lives. Some say it was a winter storm and that she lost it to the elements. But the fact still remains the same that Dolly passed away, and that in Messick Point, there is an area that to this day nothing will grow. And allegedly, that's where they found the body of Dolly Mammy. If you enjoyed this story, y'all know what to do. Do them three things on the side, and don't forget to follow me for more paranormal stories.